Hello, everybody. Welcome to lesson 6.2. As always, we're going to get started with the do now. So if you could please click this do now link, what you're going to see here is we're going to continue talking about JavaScript. And what I want you all to think about as you look at this do now here is, as I reset it, how does this button work? So what I mean is this, you're going to click this button, and then as you click it, you see this GIF appear. Oh, GIF, it's one of my favorite GIFs. So thinking about this, looking at the JavaScript panel here that my cursor is moving over, how do you think this button works? And if you don't know the answer, that is okay, because by the end of today, you will know exactly how this button works and you'll be able to make it yourself. But just give your best educated guess. How do you think this button works? We can pause this video now and then turn it back on so we can go over the answer together. Okay, I'm assuming you've unpaused at this point. So how did this button work? You might have a lot of different theories. As I said, by the end of today, we're gonna know exactly how, because today's objective is coders will use jQuery to select, show, and hide HTML elements. So vocabularies, jQuery, action selector, .show, and .hide. So you will know how to make these interactive buttons. So just a quick review from the last lesson. We talked about how JavaScript adds interactivity to our websites. JavaScript is this exciting new language that we're learning in this unit and that we'll be learning throughout the rest of this year, okay? And what JavaScript does is it adds interactivity and it makes it so that when the user does something, the website changes based on what the user is doing, okay? As we just saw in that example in the do now, when you press that button, right, a GIF appeared. That's what JavaScript allows us to do and so much more. So we can add interactivity to our websites by using jQuery. So that interactivity that you saw in the do now was added by jQuery. And you can think of jQuery as a magic spell book that adds functionality to your website. It makes things disappear and make things appear, and it can change an image or a text. Now, you might be saying to yourself, jQuery, we've been saying JavaScript so far. Well, they're related. Think of jQuery and JavaScript as like siblings, or I guess you can think of them as like a parent and a child, right? Because jQuery is what's called a JavaScript library. There are many different types of JavaScript libraries, okay? But jQuery is the one that we're going to focus on. All the JavaScript library is a simpler way that allows programmers to write JavaScript in like a shorthand. So if you look at these examples here, right? On the bottom, we have in JavaScript, this would make it so that when you click on a button, that an image disappears. And then on top here, we have that same thing, right? When you click on a button, a picture disappears or hides, but in jQuery. You'll notice the jQuery is shorter. So jQuery does exactly the same thing that JavaScript does, but it just takes fewer words or less code to do so. It's doing the same thing. And if you learn jQuery, as you see, it'd be pretty easy to learn JavaScript because you're just adding a few more things. But that's what we're going to be focusing on this unit, jQuery. But similar to JavaScript, just a shorter way of writing it. Okay, so now we're actually going to see what jQuery actually looks like in action. So we know that with jQuery or with JavaScript, we can make websites do things like what this statement is asking. When someone clicks any button element, hide the image elements, right? And what we see here is the HTML, where we have a button, and then we have an image, which is the image of the giraffe. So we want to say make a website that when you click this button, hide, this image of this beautiful giraffe will hide. So in order to do that, what we need to do is obviously write the jQuery code, but what does that look like? So as again, in plain English, imagine if I just want to be like, I want jQuery code, which makes it so that when someone clicks on the button, the image elements hide. And if we were to translate that plain English into jQuery, here where my cursor is moving around, is what it would look like, right? When I click the button, the image hides. So jQuery doesn't look that much different from plain English. It's just some symbols there thrown in, some coding stuff thrown in, but it doesn't look so different. And we're gonna break it down. If you notice, if you look at the plain English statement, that first part of the statement, when someone clicks any button element, it's represented in that first line of jQuery. When somebody clicks, you see the dot click, any button. Okay, that's represented in that first line of jQuery. And then that second line of jQuery that the output that the image elements are going to hide is in the second line of jQuery, okay? The image will hide. If this seems confusing now, that's okay. It's not gonna seem confusing as we break it down even further, but just know that when you're kind of coding these things in jQuery or JavaScript, you wanna make sure that you say it in plain English first. This is what I wanna do, and then use it to help you translate it into the actual code. So let's break it down. First things first, whenever we use jQuery, we need to make sure that we're using a $sign. That is your money, get it? Okay, I thought it was funny. So the $sign tells the computer that you're using jQuery. If you don't use a $sign, they're not going to know that that's what you want to do, and it's not going to work. So make sure you always use a $sign when using jQuery. Okay? Another thing that's going to be very important in jQuery and JavaScript in general is that you are using selectors. Selectors are HTML, or the HTML elements we want to work with. I know you might be thinking, why are we talking about HTML? This is a different language. Well, we're changing the HTML on the website, right? We're making it so that when we click a button, it does something, or so that a picture hides, et cetera, et cetera. So we need to select which from the HTML we want to change. In this example, the selectors should be the button and the image, because based on this code, we're trying to make it so that when I click a button, an image hides, right? So the selectors are what we're taking from HTML to change. Another very important thing we need to include when we're writing out our jQuery is the event. The event is what the user does to the selector. In this example, what the user is doing is they are clicking, right? When they click the button, the image will hide, right? So the event is what the user is doing, and in this case, they're clicking. There could be other kinds of events that we're going to go over, like double clicking or moving your mouse over something, right? But it is just simply the event is what the user is doing. And then of course, if the user does something, the computer does something, and what the website does in response to an event is called the action. So in this example, the action is hiding the image, because it's saying when the user clicks the button, the image will hide. The action is what the website does in response to what the user is doing. So those were a lot of new terms. And I want to make sure that we really, really understood them, because they're so essential to what we're going to be doing with jQuery. So let's do some quick lightning questions. If you want to pause after I ask a question so you can think about it, that's a perfectly great idea. So in this example, which are the selectors in this example? And just as a hint, selectors are elements from HTML. So which are these selectors in this example? Yes, the selectors are here on the first line. It's this element which has a class of .clickMe, and here on the second line, it is the h1 tag. So think to yourself, what is this code doing? Like, what will happen when somebody clicks the HTML element with the class of ClickMe? Exactly, when someone clicks that element, the H1, all H1s on the page are going to hide. So the selectors are what's taken from HTML. In this case, there's this element with the class of .clickMe. It could be a button, it could be a picture, it could be anything with that class, and the H1. Another lightning question, which is the event in this example? And just a hint, the event is what you do to make something happen on the page. It's what the user is doing. So what is the event on this page? The event is clicking, okay? So what is this code doing? What is this jQuery code doing when the event happens, when somebody clicks? Exactly. It's when somebody clicks the H2, any H2, all the P or paragraph tags will hide, right? But the event here is what the user is doing, and what the user is doing to change things is clicking. Next lightning question. What is the action in this example? So the action is what the computer does when the user does something. So in this example, which is the action? If you said .show, you are 100% correct, right? What the computer does when somebody clicks the HTML element with the class of .press is that the dog pic will show. Now we've talked about hide so far, .hide. There are many different kinds of actions, right? If you want a picture to show up, just like it did in the do now pop code, you would use .show, right? That is the action. That is what the computer is doing because you clicked. Okay, what will happen when a user clicks a button with the class of click me on this page? Let's look at this code. When the user clicks the button with the class of .click me, okay, what is going to happen based on this code? Give you a second to think about that. And you can use that sentence starter where it says hint. Exactly. When the user clicks the element with the class click me, an image will show, okay? So that's what's going to happen when we have our event is you clicking, the selector is the button with the class of .click me, and then it's going to show that based on you clicking. That's what this code is saying. So this lightning question, you actually might have kind of figured out from those first two examples, but besides HTML tag names like button, image, P, H1, H2, what else can you use as a selector? If you want to pause and go back to the lightning questions before this so you can get a hint, think about it. What other kinds of things from HTML can be used as selectors other than just tag names? All right, time's up. So other things that you can use other than just tag names is class names, okay? This is just like in CSS. Remember in CSS, if you want to like say, just make one paragraph tag blue, you wouldn't put all P tags because you just wanted one P tag to be blue, for instance, right? So you would have to use the class. And just like in CSS, when we want to denote a class, we're going to put a period before it. So in this example, we're saying when we click the element with the class of hide puppy, the puppy pic will hide, all right? The image with the class of puppy pic will hide. So it's important that if you just want to change one specific thing in the HTML, you have to make sure that you give that a class, first of all, when you're writing the HTML, and then you have to make sure that you're choosing that class in jQuery, just as you would do in CSS to change one specific thing. All right, so let's put this all into action. What we're going to do is we're going to make a very simple website, and the website's going to do this. Basically, what we want to happen is when we click the hide cats button, we want the cat pic to hide. And when we click the hide dogs button, we want the hide dogs, we want the dog pic to hide. So if you look at the JavaScript here, they've already given us some code. What they've done for us already is they've made the hide cats, they pick the selector for the button that's hide cats. Because if you go into the HTML, and by the way, going into the HTML is going to be super important as we're writing out our JavaScript. But when we go into the HTML, we see on line 7, the button with the class of hide cats controls that button. So we want to make it so that when we click the hide cats button, the cat pic hides. So let's work on that second line. The first line, line 1 of the JavaScript panel, is what the user's doing, that's clicking on the button. Now we want to make it so that the cat pic disappears. So what should I look for in HTML in order for the cat pic to disappear, or in order to get the cat pic? Yeah, I should look for where the cat pic is in HTML, right? And if it has a class. So I'm going to I see it on line 11 here of the HTML, right? The image with the class of cat pic is the cat pic. So let's put that in there. Cat pic. Okay, and now this should work. It should, when I press the hide cats button, the cat pic should hide. Wait, why is it not working? Can anyone tell me, or can anyone think of what I did wrong on line 2 of the JavaScript? Yeah, I forgot a period. Remember, that's a class. And whenever I write classes, I need to make sure that I put my period, same as in CSS. So now let's see if this works. Voila, it does. The cat pic is hidden. But now we still have that dog pic up there. And we want it to be so that when we click on the hide dogs button, which currently does not work, the dog pic will hide. So and they give us less code, so we have to do both lines by ourselves, but that's okay, we got this. So I want the first line is what the user is doing. The user is clicking the button, the hide dogs button. So what do I need to look for in HTML for that first line, or for line 5 in the JavaScript? Yeah, I need to look for where the dog button is, right? And I see it on line 8, right? The hide dogs button has a class of hide dogs. So in here, in this first parenthesis, I'm gonna write dot hide dogs. Okay. So now the button still doesn't work. I need to second line say what the computer is going to do when I click the hide dogs button. So what's the first thing I need to put whenever I'm running jQuery? Because he didn't do this for us here. Yeah, I need to put my $sign, okay? And then in this first parentheses, if we use the cat example as a model, if I want the dog pic to hide, what do I need to put in this parenthesis here? Yeah, I need to pick the dog pic. So let's look into the HTML. And if you see the dog pic is on line 12, that image tag has a class of dog pic. So that's the dog picture. I'm gonna put dog pic. Okay. And what do I want to happen? When I click the hide dogs button, what do I want to happen to the dog pic? I want it to hide, right? So I'm gonna put my action, which is .hide, make sure I follow the syntax, and then end it with a semicolon. And then let's see if this works. Yes, it does. And if I work, does the cat button still work? Yes, it does. There's no animals now, there's no pets. Now, the one thing that I'm curious to know is, what do you think would happen if on the second line of each, these are called click handlers, what do you think would happen if I put the image tag, img, instead of cat pic or dog pic? So if I replace this, I'll show it out to you. If I replace these with img, because they are images, right? That's their tag, img. What's gonna happen now when I try to use this website? Yeah, what's gonna happen is that if I click hide cats or hide dogs, both pics are going to hide, because what this code is now saying is when I click the hide cats button, all image tags will hide. And here it's saying when I click the hide dogs button, all image tags will hide, right? So the reason I bring this up, and you see it works for the dogs one too, the reason I bring this up is because you just have to be sure that you're very clear about what images you want to show or hide or change by specifying the class, okay? That's gonna be really important, not just for your independent practice today, but in general, whenever you're doing this stuff, you have to be specific, okay? All right, very nicely done. So now what you're going to do is do this very fun independent practice, okay? Oh, before we do that though, it's gonna be important that when you're using jQuery, that you make sure that jQuery is enabled. Because sometimes you'll be typing out your jQuery code and like, why doesn't this work? And it's often because you didn't enable jQuery. And you see it here, you just go to libraries and you just make sure that the jQuery is checked. If it's already checked, it's on, but if it's not, you have to turn it on, okay? All right, let's go to the independent practice, what you're going to do. I'm gonna go over the directions really quickly. Basically, you're making a whack-a-mole. I don't know if you've ever played a whack-a-mole game, but basically when you hit one mole, the other one disappears, et cetera, okay? So you need to make it so that that happens. And what you're going to do then is you're going to pay really close attention to each of these directions, okay? And then by the end, you should have a functioning jQuery whack-a-mole game. So very good luck with that. Make sure that you change the incorrects here. Oh, I need to enable jQuery. Make sure that you change the incorrects here to the appropriate selectors, okay? As you're going through this. But as you finish that, make sure that you do the exit ticket. We have 3 questions today. And then that is it. Very nicely done. We now know how to add interactivity to our website. So long.